This ZeroNow program is brought to you with the support of our founding partners.
I'm just one person.
Determined
to bring us back to zero.
I'm just one person.
Determined
to bring us back to zero.
I am just one person.
Determined to bring us back to zero.
Hi, I'm Hannah Brody, and I'm a student correspondent for ZeroNow. Today, I'm talking with Stephanie Gordon, who works for NASPA. Hi, Stephanie. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Hannah. Nice to see you.
Could you give a little more background on the role and the overall company, NASPA?
Sure. So NASPA is a higher education association. So our members are folks who work in student affairs. So folks who work outside the classroom, like the deans of students, the directors of residence life, directors of student activities, all folks who do the outside of the classroom stuff. And so we have about 15,000 members at around 2,500 institutions across the country and different places in the world.
That's awesome. So how exactly does that help with campus safety? Because obviously, I'm a college student, so I'm used to talking to individuals who are more like elementary, middle school, high school based. And so it's really interesting to talk to someone who works in higher education.
Sure. So my role is Vice President for Professional Development at the association. And so one of the things that we do is we have conferences, workshops, we publish books, we publish magazines, all about what happens outside the classroom. So that includes campus safety. So that includes things like sometimes, depending on the campus, campus public safety or the police might report to the Vice President for Student Affairs. So those people are our members. So we work with those officers or those sworn in officers or campus safety police to be able to train them, help them in their work. Oftentimes it's how to deal with diversity, equity, inclusion issues, or how to deal with, just silly college students doing their thing, making sure that they're engaging in a way that is safe and engaging. And so oftentimes also our folks are the folks who do the student conduct policies. So things like if someone makes a choice to do something not so right, and on campus, they usually end up in a student affairs person's office.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know I work in student affairs at my own. So it's very interesting getting your perspective because I work with people who are in similar positions at my own school. And so it's just very interesting. What led you to this career? Did you know this is something you wanted to do, or was it just a series of career steps that just landed you here?
Yeah. Well, so I consider myself a student affairs person, even though I work at an association. So when I went to college, I went to a small college in Boston and was very involved in my experience. So I was an RA, I was in an a cappella group, I did all kinds of student activities. And I often had some challenges just with some of my medical stuff and making sure that I could get through college right. And and so I had really great mentors in student affairs. And as I thought about my career, I started working, and when I graduated, I worked in admissions, and then I got my master's degree in college student personnel and student administration. So I kind of worked my way through in working at a couple different colleges, universities. I was a director of residence life at one point. So I worked on college campuses. And in that, I eventually ended up looking for a job. And there was this job here at NASPA as the director of educational programs. So I started off that way. And really, it's helping to affect higher education and college students on a larger scale. So I ended up falling into the association world and helping to train my fellow colleagues who work in student affairs through my work in the association.
That's awesome. So how long have you been working exactly for NASPA?
I've been working here almost 20 years. So I started here in July of 2003. It's been a long time.
How has your position evolved in terms of the role campus safety plays? Because obviously, I mean, it's not a new thing, but it's definitely being talked about a lot more, and so which is awesome. And so obviously that comes with some changes in your position. So what are some of those changes you've seen?
Yeah. Well, I'd say, a long time ago when we had, unfortunately, things happen at campuses where there was multiple shootings and and students or folks outside of the community coming into college campuses. We had a very prominent woman named Zenobia Hike. She was the vice president for student affairs at one of the campuses that had a shooting, and I think that was in 2006. But we might have been 2007, we really focused on expanding our work in campus safety, thinking about how we train student affairs administrators. We look at all of our programs and workshops to think about how do we provide the best content, the best information about active shooters, the best information about how we can avoid situations where students are making the wrong decision, or that there's community members coming into the campus doing that work. It has definitely become more complicated. Campus safety can be from the start of like even just as simple as people stealing from one another within the campus, or as complicated as an active shooter. And so our members deal with the range and the full scope of that. And it has become way more complicated than it did early in my career at NASPA. We have what we call a knowledge community. It's kind of like a student group in our association called the Campus Safety and Violence Prevention Knowledge Community. And they do work on and providing resources, doing statements on policies or procedures that are out there in the community, like whether it's a bill or a proposed legislation. And so we try to advocate for the education of all people, including those making our policies.
That's awesome. So I've always said, like, I always talk about going into higher education. However, I do not want like to be a professor. And so it just really interests me, like your job and like the role you play.
Mm-hmm.
How would you say like your relationship with the campuses are? Because obviously you're with an association.
Right.
So do you have certain campuses that you work closer with, or is it like regional based, or is it just like general?
Yeah,
like all
it's actually national and international. So we have relationships with all kinds of campuses. So from small community colleges, large community colleges, to small colleges and big, huge campuses that have 30 or 40,000 students. So our members are really our volunteers who engage across the organization. So we use many of them. We engage with many of them as content experts. And then we seek out those content experts who are doing really good things, training on risk management and Title IX and other examples.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like I go to Ohio State, so it's obviously like a huge school, and so I know that like working in certain areas, and it's obviously in a big city, so there's certain things that come with that, and so I know I just never really thought of like how big from the school perspective it was, because you're the first person I've interviewed that hasn't been like some safety technology or something like that, and so I think it's just super interesting to see how like close it gets to like my community.
Yeah. Well, we have lots of members from Ohio State, and they are very involved in our day-to-day with our conferences and workshops. And so, but yeah, it's fun to be able to talk with and engage with our folks on campus, because it provides us with both information, and then we have to try to be ahead of the game and see what's going on in the world to be able to help them and train them ahead of what might happen.
And then my next question is, what are some challenges and obstacles you face both with campus safety and just with NASPA and that whole organization as a like whole?
Yeah, I think that the legislation and policy world out there is a challenge, because there's oftentimes people make decisions that we don't want them to make, and our legislators are making changes or making unfunded mandates for campuses to have to put into place when we already have struggling budgets as it is. And so I think when it comes to campus safety, we want to always do the right thing, but often that's expensive. And how do we navigate that when we're also trying to provide resources for housing and food and all those other areas? So I think the policy and legislation area, I would think, is the hardest part when it comes to campus safety and violence prevention. And then the secondary part of that is that it's just expensive. Yeah. There's a lot of consultants that are out there, and a lot of folks who are engaged with ZeroNow who do a lot of this work too. And I think how we partner with those who are doing really cool tech things within campus safety, and also make it an easy aspect for both students and administrators to be able to monitor what's going on, react quickly so that we can make sure that it's a safe environment to be in. Those are the types of partnerships that we want to make really easy so that we can make sure that we give the services and the support and the safety to our students as we possibly can.
So what is the structure, because you mentioned the conferences, what is the structure of like a NASPA conference, and like what's its goal and how it like achieves that?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, we have lots of conferences. Oftentimes they are based on a particular content area, and or they are kind of an umbrella. I call it umbrella content. So all kinds of information that's provided instead of just something about, I don't know, student affairs and the law. It might actually be about how you run a college union, or how you support the fraternities and sororities on your college campus. So a conference, we usually have keynote speakers who have kind of about an hour, 3 or 4 times during the conference to give their most important information. And then we have concurrent sessions that provide our members and our participants a chance to present what best practices and evidence-based information that's available for that particular content area. We have conferences like assessment in student affairs mental health services, our violence prevention conference. We have a conference on sexual violence, and a conference on student success and graduation. So a lot of conferences. And so people register and they attend, go to keynote sessions, and then concurrent sessions that will help them learn more around different topic areas.
That's awesome. I actually have like one last question, and it's like we always ask everyone like what's next. And so in this case, like as a college student, like I'm in the area you're working with as a student right now, but obviously my generation is going to grow up and fulfill the roles of that are created or that exist already as a result of this. And so like, what do you hope to see? And like, what are you hoping gets accomplished through new generations, whether it's like with technology or just the knowledge that our generation has?
Yeah. So the thing I love about your generation and the one coming behind you is that you are focused on community. And I'm looking forward to how that will manifest itself in all the things that we're doing right now. Hopefully we're setting up a foundation that will really help you to do those things. But I know that the ability to have like work-life balance, thinking about the community and how you're giving back to the community, how you're setting up policies for success and not just like work more, but like work and have a wonderful life outside of work. So that's a great quality in a set of folks who are coming behind us. When I retire, I hope that the world is run by folks who think about community first. And that's where it goes with the campus safety piece. You know, we have so many things that are happening in this world that are challenging and frustrating. And some folks have very interesting ways of looking at the world. And how do we help to really educate people to say a college experience is valuable, an experience of how you engage and value the community is so important, and then how you engage as a voter is so important, which all affects campus safety. It affects the way we do our work. It affects how we're creating a better world for the people who come behind us. So I know that you'll be able to do this as we move forward.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Stephanie. I really appreciate it.
Nice chatting with you, Hannah.